We're going to convert a conic section from general form to standard form. So the first thing you're going to do is get yourself organized so you're ready to go. We're going to get our x squared and our x terms, followed by a blank where we're going to complete the square, and then our y squared and our y term, followed by a blank so we can complete the square for the y's. And whatever the constant is, we will keep that on the other side of the equals by itself. So again, that's x squared plus x blank, and then y squared plus y and a blank. Complete the square on both sides, and then just finish getting to standard form. So the first thing that we're going to do here is we're going to look at, it's a positive x squared and a negative y squared. Since it's positive and negative, that means this is a hyperbola. The reason you want to know what it is so that you know which form it's going to look like once we've converted to standard form. So now let's get it lined up. With hyperbolas, also make sure sometimes it won't be x squareds and then the y squared at the end. It'll be whichever one's positive in the front and negative in the back. So in this case, x is the positive one, so we'll start with that. And then our x term and a blank. Separate it to our y squared and our 8y and a blank equals, we're going to move the 13 over. So now we need to complete the square. For the x, it's pretty easy. It's ready to go. B over 2 squared. So we're going to add 4, which makes a perfect square of x plus 2 squared. Now, since this is an equation, if you add 4 on the left side of the equals, you also need to add 4 to the right side of the equals. For the y's, there's one extra step here because there's a negative in front. We need to factor that out first. So that becomes negative y squared minus 8y, then the blank. Now we complete the square for the parentheses here. B over 2 is 4, squared is 16. And when we write it as a perfect square, that'll be y minus 4 squared. However, we added 16 to the left side of the equal, so we need to add 16 to the right side. But more specifically, we added 16 in parentheses with a negative out front. So that's exactly what you need to do on the other side. You have to have a negative and a 16 in the parentheses. 16 in parentheses and negative outside of them. So really, we're just going to subtract 16. So now we are just about in standard form. We have x plus 2 squared minus y minus 4 squared equals, we can add all these up, that's 17 minus 16, that's 1. Now, since it is a hyperbola, it's supposed to be the x squared minus the y squared equals 1. So this is standard form. So now you can graph. Just remember it's over 1 and over 1. So the center is negative 2, 4. Your x radius is 1. And your y radius is also 1. And since the x squared is positive, it will be open horizontally, so the two curves will be going opposite directions to the left and to the right. Now we'll take a look at number 60. You're going to start it out pretty similar. There x squared, then our x, and a blank, and then our y squared. Now, this time there's no y to the first power to go with it, but that's okay. It actually makes it easier. And that equals 5. We'll move the 5 over. We'll draw the line to separate it. Complete the square with the x's. So we need to add 4, add 4. So that's x plus 2 squared plus, there's nothing to do to complete the square here, so that's just plus y squared. And we could have looked right from the beginning. We have 1x squared, positive 1y squared, so that is a circle. And this is standard form for a circle. X squared plus y squared equals r squared. So our center, h, is negative 2. And there's no number with the y, so the y, the k for our center is 0. And then the radius, r squared is 9, so the radius is 3. And then you can graph. So we'll skip to number 62. Very similar. We have a 9x squared, 4y squared. They're both positive. They're different numbers. So that is an ellipse. So let's write it out with our x squared, then our x, and a blank, plus y squared, our y, and a blank, equals our constant term. Move it over, you get positive 104. Now, before we complete the square, we need to factor out the number in front. So take out a 9. And take out the 4. So now we complete the square inside the parentheses. So we're going to add 4. And that is now a perfect square. 9x minus 2 squared. Now remember, we added 4 in the parentheses with a 9 outside. So that's exactly what we do on the other side. Add 4 in parentheses with a 9 outside. That just reminds you to multiply. So you're really adding 36. And complete the square here. We're going to add negative 1 squared is 1, so add 1 in the parentheses with a 4 on the outside. So really we're adding 4. And then we have a perfect square. Y minus 1 squared equals 104 plus 36 is 140, plus 4 is 144. Now, this is an ellipse. And ellipse is supposed to be x squared over a squared, y squared over b squared equals 1. That's not what we have right now. So we need to not only create our denominators, we also need to make this be a 1. But that's done easily by division. Divide everything by 144. That creates our 1 on the other side of the equals. And all of these will reduce so this 4 over 144 will reduce to 1 over 36. So it's y minus 1 over 36. Y minus 1 squared over 36. And 9 over 144 would reduce to 1/16. So that's x minus 2 squared over 16. So now we're in standard form. Our center is 2, 1. It's an ellipse, and our x radius is 4, and the y radius is 6. Now we'll look at one more. This time, the negative 16x squared, positive 9y squared. So that is a hyperbola. And since the x squared is the negative, that's what's going to go second. You always start with the positive. So get it lined up. break through blank, and then minus 16x squared minus 16x and a blank equals 139. Before we complete the square, we need to factor out the 9. And we need to factor out the negative 16. So now we complete the square. So b over 2 squared, we add 1. That makes a perfect square. Y plus 1 squared. But since we added 1 in parentheses with a 9 outside, we add 1 in parentheses with a 9 outside. And now when we complete the square for this one, it's a little bit trickier because b over 2, 1 over 2 is just 1/2. Square 1/2, you get 1/4. So we're adding 1/4 in the parentheses with a negative 16 outside. When we write this in factored form or perfect square form, it would be x minus 1/2. And we need to add these up. So 16 times 1/4, that's just 4. So it's 139 plus 9 is 148, minus 4 is 144. Again, this is a hyperbola, as we identified before. We have a positive and a negative. So it needs to be equal to 1, and we need to get our a and b. So we're going to divide all terms by 144. 9 over 144 reduces to 1 over 16. 16 over 144 reduces to 1 over 9, and then that would be 1. So we have our hyperbola. It's y squared, which is positive, so it will be open vertically. The center is 1/2 comma negative 1. The x radius is 3. And the y radius is 4. So now you can graph it, draw the rectangle and the asymptotes, and make sure that it opens up the correct way.